Some athletes think a black belt gives them the right to do whatever they want. They act tough when nobody can stop them. But what happens when an arrogant boxer tries to kick a harmless dog, and a young janitor takes the brutal hit to save her best friend? He thought he could just walk away. He thought he owned the gym. But he did not know someone else was watching from the shadows. When a quiet Navy SEAL steps onto the floor, the rules completely change. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments which country you are watching from, and if you love stories that melt your heart, please subscribe to support our channel. The Miami Elite Sports Complex smelled of bleach and old sweat. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. It was near midnight. Most of the wealthy clients had already gone home. Maya gripped the handle of her mop. She was a young woman in her early 20s. She wore a faded blue janitor uniform that hung loosely on her thin frame. Her dark hair was tied back in a messy knot. She pushed the heavy mop across the polished hardwood floor of the main basketball court. Her muscles ached from 8 hours of continuous labor. But she kept moving. She needed this job. In the corner of the vast room sat Max. Max was a large German shepherd with a thick coat of black and tan fur. He rested on a small folded blanket near Maya's cleaning cart. Max did not bark. He did not wander. He simply watched Maya with intelligent brown eyes. He was her only family and her protector. The night shift in this part of the city was unpredictable. The gym management allowed her to bring the dog as long as he stayed out of sight and made no noise. Max understood the rules perfectly. Maya paused and wiped her forehead with the back of her sleeve. She looked over at the dog and smiled. "Almost done, boy," Maya whispered. Max thumped his heavy tail against the floor twice. He rested his chin back on his front paws. Maya turned her attention back to the gleaming floors. The gym was a temple of wealth and ego. Racks of expensive dumbbells lined the mirrored walls. Top-tier treadmills faced the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glowing Miami skyline. Maya earned minimum wage to keep this illusion of perfection spotless. She lived in a cramped apartment miles away from the neon lights. Every dollar she earned went to rent and dog food. She did not mind the hard work. She just wanted to survive and keep Max safe. A sharp crack echoed through the building. The sound came from the boxing area down the hall. Maya stopped mopping. The rhythmic thud of leather hitting heavy bags was normal. This sounded different. It sounded angry. In the boxing ring, Troy circled his sparring partner. Troy was a towering figure in his late 20s. He had heavy muscles, a shaved head, and wore expensive black athletic gear. He held a black belt in multiple disciplines and fought professionally. He was the star of the gym. The owners treated him like royalty because his fights brought in wealthy sponsors. Troy stepped forward and threw a brutal left hook. The punch bypassed his partner's guard and connected cleanly with the jaw. The partner stumbled backward and collapsed onto the canvas. The man groaned, holding his face. "Get up," Troy spat. The sparring partner shook his head. "I am done, Troy. That was too hard. We are just sparring." Troy sneered. He dropped his hands to his sides. "You are weak. This is a fight camp. If you cannot take a hit, get out of my ring." The trainer at the edge of the ring blew a whistle. "All right, that is enough for tonight. Troy, cool down." Troy ignored the trainer. He ripped off his headgear and threw it against the ropes. His chest heaved with heavy breaths. He was angry. His timing was off tonight. His footwork felt sluggish. The upcoming title fight brought immense pressure, and Troy handled pressure with aggression. He treated the gym like his personal kingdom. He believed everyone else existed simply to serve his needs or stay out of his way. He climbed through the ropes and stepped down onto the floor. His bare feet slapped against the rubber matting. He began unwrapping his hands. His face was set in a deep scowl. The few remaining gym members in the weight area immediately lowered their heads. They pretended to focus on their phones or their workouts. Nobody made eye contact with Troy when he was in this mood. Troy grabbed his water bottle and walked toward the locker rooms. The hallway connecting the boxing area to the locker rooms passed directly by the utility closet. Maya heard the heavy footsteps approaching. She quickly moved her mop bucket to the side to clear the walkway. She kept her head down. She knew who Troy was. Everyone on the staff knew Troy. The golden rule of the night shift was simple. Do not look at Troy, do not speak to Troy, and do not get in his way. Troy walked down the hall. He squeezed his water bottle tightly. Water spilled over the top and splashed onto the freshly mopped floor. Maya watched the puddle form, but said nothing. She waited for him to pass, but Troy stopped. He did not look at Maya. His eyes locked onto the corner by the utility closet. Max lay on his blanket. The dog lifted his head as the large man stopped in front of him. Max did not growl, but his ears stood straight up. He sensed the hostility radiating from the boxer. Troy stared at the German Shepherd. His jaw tightened. The anger from the bad sparring session still boiled inside him. He needed an outlet. He hated distractions. He hated things that did not belong in his pristine training environment. "What is this mutt doing in my gym?" Troy demanded. His voice was a low, dangerous rumble that echoed off the locker room doors. Maya froze. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She gripped the mop handle tightly. The quiet night had suddenly turned incredibly dangerous. Max sat up slowly, keeping his eyes fixed on the angry man standing over him. Maya stepped forward cautiously. Her hands trembled. She had worked at the Miami Elite Sports Complex for 6 months. She had seen Troy shout at trainers, throw weights across the room, and intimidate new members. The owners never reprimanded him. He brought in money, and money dictated the rules. "I asked a question," Troy said. He turned his head slowly and glared at Maya. "Why is there a dog shedding hair in my facility?" "He is mine, sir," Maya said softly. She kept her voice steady despite the fear rising in her throat. "He is clean. He stays right here on his blanket." Troy dropped his water bottle. It hit the floor with a loud thud and rolled away, leaving a trail of water across the wood. He took one step closer to Max. The dog stood up entirely now. Max placed himself between the blanket and Maya. He still did not bark, but the fur on his back stood up slightly. "This is a professional training center," Troy said, "not a kennel for stray animals." The silence in the hallway grew heavy. The fluorescent lights continued their low hum. Troy shifted his weight, his muscles tensing under his sweat-soaked shirt. Maya realized with a sickening drop in her stomach that Troy was not just complaining. He was looking for a target. Troy took another step forward. His shadow fell over Maya and the dog. He breathed heavily. The sweat from his boxing session dripped from his chin onto the polished wood floor. Maya instinctively took a step back. She kept her mop firmly in her hands. She tried to create a barrier between the massive fighter and her only companion. Max remained entirely still. The German Shepherd did not break eye contact with Troy. "I am talking to you, girl," Troy said. His voice echoed down the quiet hallway. "You bring a filthy animal into my space. You disrespect my training environment. Do you know who I am?" "I am sorry, sir," Maya said. She kept her voice low and steady. She wanted to de-escalate the situation. "He is not filthy. He is a trained service dog. I have permission from the management to keep him here during my shift. He does not make any noise. He will not bother you." "He is bothering me right now," Troy snapped. He pointed a taped finger at the dog. "His smell bothers me. His presence bothers me. I just had the worst sparring session of my camp. I come out here to cool down, and I have to look at this mutt." Maya swallowed hard. She looked around the hallway. A few late-night gym members stood near the weight racks. 2 men in expensive workout gear watched the scene unfold. A woman on a treadmill paused her machine. They all saw Troy cornering the young janitor. None of them moved. None of them spoke up. They knew Troy's reputation. He possessed a vicious temper. He held the gym records. The management protected him at all costs. The bystanders lowered their eyes. They pretended to check their phones. They chose their own safety over doing the right thing. Troy noticed their silence. It fed his ego. It validated his dominance. He ruled this building. "Get him out of here," Troy commanded. "Right now. Put him outside in the alley where he belongs." "I cannot do that, sir," Maya pleaded. Her hands shook violently now. "It is raining outside. It is not safe. Please, I will move him to the supply closet. You will not see him again tonight. I promise." Troy's face turned a dark shade of red. He did not accept defiance. He did not accept negotiations from a minimum wage cleaner. He wanted compliance. He wanted to exert power. "You do not tell me what you cannot do," Troy growled. He did not wait for another response. Troy shifted his weight to his left leg. He pivoted his hips with the practiced speed of a professional striker. He targeted the dog. He pulled his right leg back to deliver a devastating front kick directly into the ribcage of the German Shepherd. The kick carried enough force to shatter bone. Maya saw the shift in his shoulders. She realized his intent a fraction of a second before he launched the strike. She did not think about her own safety. She did not calculate the risk. She dropped the mop. The wooden handle clattered loudly against the floor. Maya threw her entire body forward. She dove over the blanket and wrapped both of her arms tightly around Max's neck. She pulled the large dog close to her chest and turned her back toward the incoming blow. The impact sounded like a baseball bat striking a heavy leather bag. Troy's heel slammed directly into the center of Maya's spine. The sheer brute force of the heavy kick lifted her slightly off the ground. All the air violently exploded from her lungs. A blinding flash of white-hot pain shot through her nervous system. She gasped, but no sound came out. Maya collapsed onto the hardwood floor. She curled into a tight ball around Max. She squeezed her eyes shut. She fought against the sudden wave of nausea and darkness, threatening to pull her into unconsciousness. Every muscle in her back spasmed. The pain radiated down her legs and up into her neck. Max let out a sharp whine. The dog struggled beneath her, trying to assess the threat. He licked her face frantically. He smelled her pain. He tried to stand up to defend her, but Maya refused to let go. She pinned him down with her own body weight. She knew if Max bit Troy, the authorities would put the dog down. She had to take the punishment to keep him alive. Troy stood over them. He did not look horrified. He did not look remorseful. He looked annoyed. "Stupid girl," Troy spat. He rubbed his heel on the floor. "You want to play the hero for a dog? You want to take his beatings?" Maya coughed violently. She tried to pull oxygen back into her paralyzed lungs. She opened her eyes slightly and saw Troy repositioning his feet. He was not finished. His anger remained unsatisfied. He raised his right foot again. This time, he aimed for Maya's exposed ribs. He intended to teach her a permanent lesson about respect. The few bystanders in the gym gasped. A woman covered her mouth, yet they remained frozen. They watched the brutality unfold like a television show. Troy drove his leg forward. He put his full body weight behind the second kick. The strike never landed. A hand shot out from the shadows near the locker room entrance. It moved with blinding, terrifying speed. The hand clamped down firmly onto Troy's ankle in midair. The impact completely killed the momentum of the heavy kick. Troy froze. He tried to pull his leg back, but the grip felt like a vice made of solid steel. He lost his balance slightly and hopped on his left foot to stay upright. He looked up, his eyes wide with shock and sudden fury. Luke stepped fully into the fluorescent light. Luke was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his early 30s. He wore plain gray sweatpants and a fitted black t-shirt. He did not have the exaggerated, bulky muscles of a bodybuilder. He possessed the dense, compact frame of a man who forged his strength through rigorous, functional survival. He was an active-duty Navy SEAL. He had spent the last decade operating in the most dangerous environments on Earth. He did not train to win trophies. He trained to neutralize threats. Luke did not look angry. He did not raise his voice. His face remained a mask of absolute, chilling calm. He stared directly into Troy's eyes. "That is enough," Luke said. His voice was quiet, yet it cut through the silence of the gym with absolute authority. He held the black belt's leg suspended in the air. He did not squeeze harder, but the implicit threat of violence radiated from his completely relaxed posture. The hierarchy of the gym had just shifted in a single second. Troy stared at the hand gripping his ankle. He did not understand. He weighed 220 pounds. He kicked with enough kinetic energy to dent a car door. Yet, this stranger absorbed the force completely. Troy tried to yank his leg back. He expected the man to let go or stumble. Luke did not move an inch. He kept his feet firmly planted on the polished wood. He held Troy's leg with terrifying ease. "Let go of me," Troy snarled. He threw a wild, desperate left hook aimed right at Luke's jaw. Troy was a professional fighter. His hands moved fast. But Luke operated on a different frequency. He did not flinch. He did not throw a counterpunch. Luke simply dropped Troy's ankle and stepped inside the arc of the incoming punch. He raised his left forearm, deflecting the heavy strike away from his face. Simultaneously, Luke's right hand shot forward and secured a grip on Troy's wrist. The transition was seamless. It happened faster than the human eye could track. Luke pivoted his hips and stepped behind Troy's lead leg. He twisted Troy's arm behind the boxer's back. He applied a standard military compliance hold. He locked Troy's wrist near his shoulder blade and drove his own body weight down into Troy's elbow joint. The mechanical pressure was immediate and absolute. Troy gasped. A sharp pain shot through his shoulder capsule. His knees buckled under the sudden, overwhelming force. He crashed heavily onto the hardwood floor, landing on both knees. "Stay down," Luke said. His voice remained entirely flat. He did not sound angry. He sounded like a man giving a simple instruction. Luke pressed his knee lightly against the back of Troy's neck. He did not apply lethal pressure. He just established total control. Troy struggled. He grunted and tried to explode upward. He used all his boxing strength to break the hold. He engaged his core. He tried to twist his hips, but his sports training betrayed him. Boxing taught him to fight facing an opponent. It did not teach him how to escape a joint lock applied by a man who understood skeletal leverage. Every time Troy moved, Luke shifted his weight slightly. He tightened the lock just enough to send a warning flare of pain through Troy's shoulder. "If you keep moving, it will snap," Luke stated quietly. Troy stopped moving. The reality of the situation crashed over him. He was the gym champion. He intimidated everyone. Now, a random stranger pinned him to the floor, like a misbehaving child in front of his audience. Humiliation burned his face. He breathed heavily, staring at the floorboards, completely immobilized. Maya slowly pushed herself up into a sitting position. Her back throbbed with a dull, heavy ache. She kept one arm wrapped securely around Max. The German Shepherd sat tall now. He watched the man in the gray sweatpants control the angry boxer. Max did not bark. He seemed to understand that the immediate threat was neutralized. Maya stared at Luke. She could not comprehend what just happened. Troy was a monster. He bullied trainers and sparring partners daily. Yet, this stranger dismantled him in 3 seconds without throwing a single punch. Luke did not wear expensive gym clothes. He wore plain sneakers. He breathed slowly and exclusively through his nose. He radiated a cold, mechanical focus. The few gym members standing near the weight racks remained frozen. They watched the scene with wide eyes. Nobody pulled out a phone to record. The air in the room felt heavy and dangerous. Footsteps echoed rapidly down the hallway from the front desk. "What is going on here?" a loud voice demanded. David pushed his way through the small group of onlookers. David was the general manager of the Miami Elite Sports Complex. He was a man in his mid-40s. He wore a sharp, tailored blue suit and a polished silver watch. He managed the gym's finances and pampered the high-paying clients. David stopped and stared at the scene. He saw Maya on the floor with her dog. He saw his star athlete forced onto his knees by a stranger. Panic flashed across David's face. Troy's upcoming fight guaranteed a massive payout for the gym. An injury would ruin everything. "Hey, let him go," David shouted. He pointed a finger at Luke. "Release him right now, or I am calling the police. This is private property." Luke did not look at David. He looked down at Troy. "Are we done?" Luke asked the boxer. Troy gritted his teeth. "Yeah, we are done." Luke released the wrist. He took 2 steps back and raised his hands loosely to his chest. He returned to a neutral, relaxed stance. Troy scrambled to his feet. He cradled his right arm against his chest. His face was pale. He glared at Luke, but he did not step forward. The aggressive bravado was gone. He recognized a predator when he finally met one. David rushed to Troy's side. "Are you hurt? Did he injure your shoulder?" "I am fine," Troy muttered. He refused to look at the manager. He felt stripped of his power. David turned his anger toward the easiest target in the room. He glared at Maya. She still sat on the floor, holding her dog. "Maya!" David yelled. His voice shook with rage. "What is the meaning of this? Why is that animal out here? You know the rules." Maya struggled to stand up. Her back flared with pain. She leaned heavily against the wall for support. Max stood closely by her leg. "He was on his blanket, Mr. David," Maya said. Her voice trembled. "Troy approached us. He tried to kick Max. I had to protect him." "Do not lie to me," David snapped. He waved his hand dismissively. "Troy is a professional. He would not waste his time on a stray dog. You provoked him. You let that animal disrupt the gym." "He is not a stray," Maya said. Tears welled up in her eyes. "He is my dog, and I am telling the truth." David shook his head. He did not care about the truth. He cared about his starfighter. He cared about the wealthy members watching the scene. He needed to re-establish order and protect the gym's image. "I warned you about bringing that dog here," David said coldly. "You are a liability. I will not let a cleaner ruin the reputation of this facility. You are fired, Maya. Pack your things and leave immediately." Maya froze. The words hit her harder than Troy's kick. She needed this paycheck to pay her rent next week. She needed it to feed Max. "Please, Mr. David," Maya begged. "I need this job. It will not happen again. I will leave Max at home." "It is too late," David said. He crossed his arms. "Turn in your keys to the front desk. If you are not out of this building in 10 minutes, I will have you arrested for trespassing." Luke stood silently in the shadows. He did not interrupt the manager. He did not argue. He simply watched. His eyes scanned David's face. He memorized the manager's features. He looked at Troy, noting the fear still lingering in the boxer's eyes. Luke cataloged every detail. He did not believe in shouting. He believed in consequences. And he knew exactly what he needed to do next. David extended his hand. He waited for the keys. Maya stared at him. The reality of the situation crushed her. She slowly reached into her pocket. She pulled out the heavy ring of brass keys. She placed them into David's palm. "Good," David said. "Now get out." Troy sneered. He stood safely behind the manager. He felt brave again. "And keep that mud away from here," Troy added. "If I see him near this building again, I will call the police. I will tell them he attacked me. They will put him down." Maya gasped. She grabbed Max's collar tightly. She knew Troy meant it. The city animal control laws were strict. A complaint from a high-profile athlete would mean a death sentence for her dog. "You will not do that," a quiet voice said. Luke stepped forward. He moved out of the shadows and stood directly beside Maya. He did not look at Troy. He looked at David. "She is leaving," Luke said. "You have your keys. There is no need for threats." David puffed out his chest. He tried to look intimidating. "Who are you? Are you a member here?" "No," Luke replied. "Then you are trespassing too. Leave now, or I will call security." Luke did not argue. He knew when a tactical retreat was necessary. The objective was to get Maya and the dog to safety. He turned to the young woman. "Come on," Luke said softly. "Let us go. They are not worth it." Maya nodded rapidly. She wiped her eyes. She picked up her small backpack from the cleaning cart. She led Max toward the exit. Luke walked right behind her. He positioned his body between the woman and the two angry men. He kept his eyes on Troy until they pushed through the glass doors. The heavy glass doors slid shut. The noise of the gym vanished. The humid Miami air hit them immediately. It was raining lightly. The streets were quiet. The neon lights from the nearby clubs reflected in the puddles on the pavement. Maya stopped under the awning. She dropped her backpack onto the concrete. She covered her face with both hands and began to cry. The adrenaline faded. The sharp pain in her back returned, mixed with the terrifying realization that she had no income. Max whined. The large dog pressed his head against her leg. He tried to comfort her. Luke stood nearby. He let her cry for a moment. He understood the shock of a sudden traumatic event. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a clean handkerchief. He offered it to her. "Take this," Luke said. Maya took it. She wiped her face. "Thank you. And thank you for stepping in. You did not have to do that." "I could not stand there and watch," Luke said. "How is your back?" "It hurts," Maya admitted. "But I will be fine. I am just worried about Max. And my rent." "Do you have a safe way home?" Luke asked. "I usually take the bus," Maya said. She looked down the dark street. "Not tonight," Luke said. He pulled out his phone. He opened a ride-sharing application. He ordered a large vehicle that allowed pets. "I am getting you a car. It will take you directly to your door." "I cannot pay you back," Maya protested. "I do not want your money," Luke said. His voice was firm but gentle. "You protected your dog. You took a hit for him. That shows character. You go home, lock your door, rest your back. I will handle things here." Maya looked at him. She saw the calm certainty in his eyes. She did not know this man, but she felt entirely safe around him. "What are you going to do?" "I am going to make sure they do not bother you again," Luke said simply. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. Luke opened the back door. Maya climbed in. Max jumped up onto the seat beside her. Maya rolled down the window. "Thank you," Maya said again. "What is your name?" "Luke." "Thank you, Luke." The SUV pulled away. Luke watched the taillights disappear into the rainy night. His expression hardened. The gentle protector vanished. The Navy SEAL returned. He turned and walked toward the dark parking lot behind the sports complex. He found his rental car parked under a broken street lamp. It was an unassuming gray sedan. He unlocked the door and slid into the driver's seat. He did not turn on the engine. Luke reached into the back seat. He grabbed a heavy black tactical backpack. He placed it on the passenger seat and unzipped the main compartment. He pulled out a rugged, military-grade laptop. It was encased in thick rubber and metal. He booted up the machine. The screen glowed with a faint blue light in the dark cabin. He needed intelligence. He needed leverage. He knew that men who acted with such impunity in public usually hid far worse crimes in private. The arrogance Troy displayed did not exist in a vacuum. It was cultivated. David protected the boxer because the boxer provided something much more valuable than gym memberships. Luke needed to find out exactly what that was. Luke opened a specialized network scanning program. The gym possessed a guest wireless network and a private administrative network. The administrative network was password protected. For a normal user, it was secure. For a man trained in cyber warfare and intelligence gathering, it was a minor obstacle. He ran a decryption protocol. Lines of code scrolled rapidly across the black screen. Luke sat quietly. He listened to the rain tapping against the roof of the car. 10 minutes later, the program chimed softly. It had cracked the security key. Luke bypassed the firewall and entered the gym's central server. He moved through the digital folders with practiced efficiency. He ignored the membership schedules and workout routines. He searched for the financial records. He searched for hidden directories. He found a folder labeled with David's initials. He opened it. He scanned the spreadsheets. At first glance, they looked like normal accounting documents, but Luke noticed discrepancies. Large sums of cash were moving through the accounts under vague descriptions: equipment maintenance, private consultations. The numbers did not match standard gym operations. He dug deeper. He accessed the security camera archives. He checked the footage from the boxing area. He saw the incident. He saw Troy kicking Maya. He downloaded the video file to his local drive. That was solid evidence of assault. Then, he found something else. He found a locked subfolder buried deep within the server. It required a secondary password. Luke initiated a brute force attack on the lock. He watched the progress bar slowly fill up. The night was endless, but Luke was patient. He sat in the cold car, typing commands, peeling back the layers of the Miami Elite Sports Complex. Luke stared at the glowing screen. The digital ledger lay open before him in the dark cabin of his rental car. The document contained rows of names, dates, and massive dollar amounts. The header read, "Underground Bout." The pieces connected rapidly in his mind. The Miami Elite Sports Complex was not just a high-end training facility for wealthy clients. It was a sophisticated money laundering front. The real profit came from unsanctioned, illegal fights hosted right on the property. He scrolled through the transaction history. David managed the accounts. The manager funneled the gambling money through fake equipment purchases, phantom maintenance contracts, and bogus private consulting fees. Troy was the main attraction. The arrogant boxer did not just fight in regulated arenas under the bright lights of television cameras. He fought in the basement. He brutalized outmatched opponents for the amusement of high-rolling gamblers and local crime bosses. That explained his supreme confidence. He generated millions of dollars in illegal revenue for the gym owners. He was their golden goose. Luke closed the financial spreadsheet. He needed more. Financial crimes would send David to federal prison, but Luke wanted to ensure Troy faced justice for his violence against the young janitor. He reopened the security camera network. He bypassed the firewall protocols and navigated to the encrypted archive folder. He located the exact timestamp from earlier that evening. The video file loaded onto his screen. The security footage was completely silent, but the sheer brutality was crystal clear. Luke watched Troy approach Maya in the hallway. He watched the massive fighter wind up and kick the young woman viciously in the back while she shielded her dog. The incredible force of the blow made Luke tighten his jaw. A cold anger settled in his chest. He watched the footage continue. He saw his own figure step into the frame, catch the second kick, and take Troy down to the floor. Luke downloaded the video and saved the file to an encrypted external hard drive. He possessed the weapon he needed. Now he needed to set the trap. The sun rose over Miami. The sports complex buzzed with morning activity. The front desk staff smiled brightly at the arriving gym members. The violent incident from the previous night seemed completely forgotten, erased by the sterile environment of wealth and privilege. In the private boxing area, Troy wrapped his hands with athletic tape. He felt excellent. His right shoulder still held a dull ache from the joint lock Luke had applied, but his ego was fully repaired. He had forced the manager to fire the janitor. He had asserted his total dominance. The stranger who humiliated him was gone, likely scared off by David's threat of calling the police. A man walked into the boxing area. His name was Vince. Vince was a fight promoter in his late 50s. He had thinning gray hair, slicked back tightly, with heavy pomade. He wore a loud, checkered sport coat over a black turtleneck sweater. He carried a thin tablet computer and wore a thick gold chain around his neck. Vince managed the underground operations for the gym. He organized the illegal bets, recruited the disposable fighters, and brought in the wealthy clientele. "You look incredibly sharp today, champ," Vince said. He tapped his finger against the tablet screen. "The numbers are looking massive for Saturday night. We have 3 new players flying in from Las Vegas just to watch you work." Troy smirked. He threw a quick, snapping jab into the air. "Are they bringing cash?" "Millions of it," Vince replied. He stepped closer to the edge of the ring. "This is the biggest pot we have ever built in this city. Your opponent is flying in from Mexico tonight. He is big, but he is extremely slow. You will tear him apart in the second round." "I always do," Troy said confidently. He climbed through the ropes and into the ring. "I need this fight, Vince. The regulated matches pay well, but they have too many rules. Too many doctors and referees stopping the action. I like the basement. I like fighting without restrictions." "That is exactly why you are my top earner," Vince said. He smiled, showing a row of overly white, artificial veneers. "David tells me you had a minor issue out in the hallway last night? A cleaner and a dog?" Troy scowled at the memory. "It is handled." David fired her. "Some guy tried to play the hero, but I chased him off." "Good," Vince nodded. "We cannot have any distractions. Saturday night is too important. The venue is completely secure. The private security team is doubling their shifts starting tomorrow. Nobody gets into the basement without my personal approval." Troy nodded. He began hitting the heavy bag. Each heavy strike echoed loudly through the gym. He felt untouchable. He believed the hidden basement was his absolute domain. He did not know that a highly trained predator was currently mapping every single inch of his territory. Luke sat in a small coffee shop down the street from the gym. He drank black coffee and reviewed the architectural floor plans on his laptop. He had pulled the blueprints from the city planning database. The sports complex had a massive subterranean level. The public blueprints labeled it as a storage and mechanical maintenance area. The digital records from David's computer proved otherwise. Luke traced the access routes with his finger. The basement had two main entry points. One was a large freight elevator located in the back loading dock. The other was a reinforced steel door hidden directly behind the utility closets near the locker rooms. It was the exact same utility closet where Maya usually kept Max the dog. The location was not a coincidence. Maya had worked right next to the entrance of the illegal fight ring, and Troy hated her presence there. Luke closed the laptop. He picked up his mobile phone. He did not dial the local police precinct. A gambling ring of this size often bought protection from local beat cops and city inspectors. He needed a much higher authority. He needed people he trusted with his life. He dialed a secure, encrypted number. The line clicked and connected immediately. "Speak," a gruff voice answered. "Hey, Miller," Luke said. Miller was a former Navy SEAL squad mate. He now worked as a senior tactical agent for a federal task force in Miami, dealing with organized crime and racketeering. "Luke, it has been a long time. Are you in town?" "I am," Luke replied. "And I have a major package for you. Money laundering, illegal gambling, and unsanctioned fights. Massive cash flow. I have the digital ledgers, the network access logs, and high-definition video evidence of aggravated assault by their star fighter." Miller chuckled softly over the line. "You are supposed to be on leave, man. You cannot help yourself, can you?" "They hurt a civilian," Luke said. His voice turned completely cold. "I need a federal tactical unit on standby for Saturday night. They are hosting a major event." "Send me the data," Miller said. His tone became entirely professional. "If it is as big as you say, I will get the federal warrants signed today. We will breach the doors." "Good," Luke said. "But leave the fighter to me." He ended the call. He looked out the coffee shop window toward the massive glass building of the gym. Troy and David thought they owned the city. They thought the rules did not apply to them. They were about to learn a very painful lesson about consequences. Luke stood up and walked out into the bright morning sun. The trap was perfectly set. Luke sat at the small desk in his hotel room. The blinds were drawn tight against the bright Miami sun. The only light in the room came from the glowing screen of his tactical laptop. He had spent the entire morning compiling the data he extracted from the gym server. He organized the files into neat, undeniable packages of evidence. The financial ledgers went into one folder. The email communications between David and the fight promoter, Vince, went into another. The security footage of Troy assaulting Maya sat in a separate, highly secured directory. He connected his computer to a heavily encrypted military server. He initiated a secure file transfer to Miller, his contact at the Federal Task Force. The progress bar moved steadily across the screen. Luke watched it with cold satisfaction. He did not simply want to stop a bully. He wanted to dismantle the entire system that allowed the bully to thrive. His phone buzzed on the desk. It was Miller. "I am looking at the data now," Miller said. His voice sounded tight and professional. "This is a goldmine, Luke. You handed us a fully operational syndicate on a silver platter. The financial records trace back to 3 different organized crime families operating on the coast. Do you have enough for a warrant?" Luke asked. "I have enough for 50 warrants," Miller replied. "I already woke up a federal judge. We are getting the signatures right now. We are mobilizing the tactical teams. We will hit the gym tomorrow night, right when the main event starts in the basement. We want to catch them with the cash on the table." "Good," Luke said. "Secure the perimeter completely. The basement has a reinforced steel door behind the utility closets near the locker rooms. They will try to lock it down. We will bring the heavy breaching tools," Miller assured him. "What is your play, Luke? You are technically on leave." "I am just a concerned citizen," Luke said smoothly. "I will be in the area to observe." "Do not get in our way, Navy," Miller warned, though a hint of amusement colored his voice. "We move in at exactly 10 o'clock tomorrow night." Luke ended the call. The federal trap was set. Now he needed to apply psychological pressure to the targets. He needed them to make mistakes. Miles away from the luxury of the sports complex, Maya sat at a worn wooden table in her small apartment. The ceiling fan clicked rhythmically overhead. The air conditioning unit in the window rattled, struggling to fight the dense Florida heat. Max rested his large head heavily on Maya's lap. He breathed slowly, his dark eyes looking up at her with unwavering loyalty. Maya stroked his thick fur. She held her cheap smartphone in her other hand. Her screen showed a list of local cleaning agencies. She had spent the last 3 hours calling every business in the district. She needed work immediately. Her rent was due in less than 2 weeks, and her bank account held almost nothing. She dialed the 4th number on her list. A woman answered. On the 3rd ring, Maya introduced herself and asked about any available janitorial positions. "Maya?" the woman on the phone asked. Her tone shifted immediately. "Did you just get terminated from the elite sports complex?" Maya felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "Yes, ma'am, but it was a misunderstanding. I am a hard worker." "I am sorry," the woman said coldly. "David, the manager over there, sent an email to all the local contracting agencies this morning. He said you stole from client lockers and brought a dangerous, aggressive animal into a private facility. We do not hire thieves." The line went dead. Maya dropped the phone onto the table. Tears of pure frustration spilled down her cheeks. David had not just fired her. He had actively sabotaged her future. He used his power to crush a minimum wage worker simply to protect his own ego and his star fighter. Max whined softly. He sensed her distress. He nudged her hand with his wet nose. "I know, buddy," Maya whispered, wiping her eyes. "We will figure it out, I promise." Her phone rang again. Maya expected another rejection. She looked at the screen. It was an unknown number. She hesitated for a moment before swiping the green button. "Hello?" she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Maya, it is Luke." The sound of his calm, steady voice immediately grounded her. The panic in her chest subsided just a fraction. "Luke," she breathed out. "Hi, how did you get my number?" "I have my ways," Luke said softly. "Are you and Max okay? How is your back today?" "My back is bruised, but I am fine," Maya said. She tried to sound brave. "But David blacklisted me. He told the agencies I was a thief. I cannot find a job." "Listen to me very carefully," Luke said. His tone left no room for doubt. "Do not worry about David. Do not worry about the job right now. Stay inside your apartment this weekend. Buy a little extra dog food and lock your doors. By Sunday morning, David will not have the power to hire or fire anyone ever again. "What are you doing?" Maya asked, her eyes widening. "I am balancing the scales," Luke replied. "Stay safe, Maya. I will check on you Sunday." The call ended. Maya stared at the phone. She did not fully understand what the quiet stranger was planning, but for the first time in 24 hours, she felt a genuine spark of hope. Back at the elite sports complex, Friday evening approached its peak. The gym floor was packed with wealthy clients. The heavy bass of electronic music pumped through the state-of-the-art sound system. Troy stood in the center of the boxing ring. He wore shiny new gloves and hit the focus mitts held by his trainer. He looked fast. He looked dangerous. David stood near the edge of the ring, wearing a sharp suit and drinking a bottle of expensive imported water. He chatted with Vince, the fight promoter. They both looked incredibly pleased with themselves. The underground fight was 24 hours away, and the illegal betting pool had just crossed $2 million. Suddenly, the electronic music cut out. The silence hit the gym floor like a physical weight. People stopped lifting weights. Runners paused their treadmills. Troy dropped his hands and glared up at the sound system. "Hey!" Troy yelled. "Turn the music back on." Before David could call the front desk, the massive television screens mounted across the walls flickered. The sports channels vanished. The screens went entirely black for exactly 3 seconds. Then, a video began to play. It played silently, but the high-definition resolution made every detail painfully clear. It was the security footage from the hallway. Every person in the gym looked up. They watched the screen as Troy cornered the young janitor. They watched in collective horror as Troy violently kicked the young woman in the back while she shielded her dog. Gasps echoed across the gym floor. Several clients pointed at the screens. The illusion of the pristine, honorable training facility shattered into a million pieces. David dropped his water bottle. It shattered on the floor. His face turned completely white. "Turn it off!" David screamed, sprinting toward the manager's office. "Cut the power to the screens, now!" Troy stood frozen in the ring. The clients closest to him began to step back. They looked at him with disgust instead of admiration. Troy's face burned bright red with rage and sudden, piercing fear. The video looped. It played again and again. Underneath the footage, a single line of bright red text appeared on all the screens. "The basement secrets end tomorrow." Luke sat in his rental car, parked across the street. He watched the panicked clients begin to stream out of the front doors. He watched the chaos unfold. He closed his laptop and started the engine. The net was closing tightly around them, and they had absolutely nowhere to run. The hidden basement of the Miami Elite Sports Complex felt like a completely different world. Concrete walls replaced the polished mirrored glass of the upper floors. The heavy smell of stale beer, thick cigar smoke, and raw sweat hung stubbornly in the air. A makeshift boxing ring sat directly in the center of the massive subterranean room. Over 200 wealthy spectators crowded tightly around the ropes. They held thick stacks of $100 bills in their hands. They shouted aggressive bets over the deafening roar of the crowd. Vince stood near the blue corner of the ring. He held his electronic tablet, eagerly tracking the rapidly incoming bets. The numbers climbed past $3 million. David stood next to the promoter, sipping expensive whiskey from a heavy crystal glass. They felt entirely invincible. They believed they ruled this underground empire without any consequences. Inside the bright lights of the ring, Troy systematically dismantled his opponent. The Mexican fighter was large and incredibly durable, but he completely lacked Troy's explosive speed. Troy moved around the canvas with lethal precision. He bobbed under a heavy right hook and delivered a devastating combination of strikes to the man's ribs. The crowd screamed in approval. Troy fed on their dark energy. He felt like an untouchable god. He did not fight to score technical points. He fought to inflict maximum pain. Troy stepped back, measured the distance perfectly, and threw a massive uppercut. The heavy leather glove connected squarely with his opponent's jaw. The larger man instantly went limp and collapsed face first onto the canvas. He did not move. The referee did not even bother counting to 10. The crowd erupted into a wild, bloodthirsty frenzy. Troy raised both of his arms high in the air. He walked slowly around the perimeter of the ring, basking in the raw, unfiltered adoration. This basement was his true domain. A deafening explosion suddenly rocked the concrete walls. The blast blew the heavy steel door completely off its reinforced hinges. The massive metal slab crashed violently onto the floor. A thick cloud of gray smoke rolled into the room. The cheering crowd went entirely silent for a fraction of a second. Then, pure chaos erupted. Federal tactical agents flooded into the basement from all sides. They wore heavy black body armor and carried compact assault rifles. Bright tactical strobe lights cut blindly through the cigar smoke, disorienting everyone in the room. "Federal agents, get on the ground! Nobody move!" The harsh command echoed loudly through the basement speakers. Panic instantly seized the high-rolling gamblers. Men in expensive tailored suits scrambled desperately toward the exits. They dropped large wads of cash onto the dirty floor. They violently pushed each other out of the way in a futile attempt to escape. But the agents had already secured every single perimeter point. David dropped his whiskey glass. It shattered into 100 pieces at his feet. 2 large federal agents immediately tackled the manager to the floor. They pinned his arms forcefully behind his back and snapped cold steel handcuffs tightly onto his wrists. Vince tried to smash his digital tablet against a concrete pillar to destroy the evidence. An agent closed the distance and hit Vince hard in the stomach. Vince went down, gasping for air, and quickly found himself in handcuffs as well. In the center of the ring, Troy watched his kingdom crumble. The police briefly ignored the fighters to secure the massive, violent crowd. Troy did not freeze. He operated on pure survival instinct. He slipped quickly between the ropes and jumped off the opposite side of the ring into the shadows. He ran toward a dark, narrow corridor that led to the old mechanical maintenance rooms. He knew about a hidden exit door at the end of the hall. He just needed to reach the back alleyway. Troy sprinted down the concrete hallway. His bare feet slapped loudly against the cold, damp floor. He breathed heavily, fueled by pure adrenaline. He reached the heavy metal exit door and slammed his thick shoulder hard into the push bar. The door flew open. The humid Miami night air hit his sweaty face immediately. Heavy rain poured down from the black sky in thick sheets. Troy stepped out into the dark alley. He looked left toward the main street. He saw flashing red and blue police lights reflecting brightly off the wet brick walls. He turned right. The alley stretched deep into the darkness, offering a clear path to freedom. He took one step forward. A figure stepped quietly out from the shadows. Luke stood under the dim, flickering glow of a single distant street lamp. He wore a dark, waterproof jacket and plain jeans. His hands rested easily at his sides. He did not look surprised. He looked like a man patiently waiting for a bus in the rain. Troy stopped dead in his tracks. He recognized the quiet stranger instantly. The bitter memory of his humiliated ego flared painfully in his chest, mixing violently with the desperate panic of the police raid. "Get out of my way!" Troy roared over the sound of the rain. Luke did not move a single inch. He did not speak. He simply stared at the boxer with cold, mechanical calculation. Troy charged forward. He threw a wild, desperate right cross aimed directly at Luke's head. He put every ounce of his massive weight and remaining strength into the heavy punch. Luke stepped offline seamlessly. He let the massive punch sail harmlessly past his face. He grabbed Troy's extended wrist firmly with his left hand and clamped his right hand tightly onto Troy's tricep. Luke pivoted his hips sharply. He used Troy's aggressive forward momentum entirely against him. Luke dropped his center of gravity perfectly and threw the 220-pound boxer completely over his hip. Troy crashed violently onto the wet asphalt. The brutal impact knocked the wind entirely out of his lungs. Before he could even attempt to recover, Luke dropped heavily onto him. Luke drove his knee directly into Troy's chest, pinning him flat against the flooded ground. Luke instantly secured the boxer's right arm in a tight, inescapable straight arm lock. Troy gasped desperately for air. The cold rain washed over his face, mixing with his sweat. He stared up at the calm, terrifying eyes of the Navy SEAL holding his arm at the breaking point. "You are done," Luke said quietly. Troy stopped fighting. He stopped pulling. He let his head fall heavily back against the wet road. His supreme arrogance vanished completely, washed away in the cold, harsh reality of absolute defeat. Sunday morning arrived with bright, clear skies. The heavy rain from the previous night washed the city streets completely clean. Maya sat on her worn fabric sofa. She held a warm mug of coffee in both hands. Max slept peacefully at her feet. She pointed the remote at the small television in the corner of the room and pressed the power button. The local news channel broadcasted a breaking report. The camera showed the Miami Elite Sports Complex. Thick yellow police tape blocked the main glass entrance. Federal agents carried dozens of heavy cardboard boxes out of the front doors. The bold headline flashed across the bottom of the screen. "Massive underground gambling ring busted." Maya leaned forward. She watched the footage carefully. The news anchor explained the shocking details. A joint federal task force raided the luxury gym late Saturday night. The agents arrested over 200 people. They confiscated millions of dollars in illegal cash and seized multiple bank accounts. The television screen cut to a new video clip. It showed David and Vince walking out of the building. Heavy steel handcuffs bound their wrists tightly together. They wore bright orange county jail uniforms. They kept their heads down. They looked incredibly small and completely defeated. The arrogant manager no longer possessed any power to intimidate anyone. Then, the camera focused on Troy. The star boxer looked entirely broken. He wore a standard gray prison shirt. His right arm rested heavily in a thick medical sling. The news anchor stated that Troy faced multiple felony charges. The charges included illegal prize fighting, massive tax evasion, and aggravated assault. His professional boxing career was permanently over. The State Sports Commission officially revoked his fighting license early that morning. Maya let out a long, shaky breath. The heavy knot of fear in her chest finally dissolved. She set her coffee mug on the wooden table. She reached down and buried her hands in Max's thick, dark fur. The large German shepherd opened his eyes and thumped his heavy tail against the floor. "We are safe, buddy," Maya whispered softly. "They cannot hurt us anymore." A sharp knock on her apartment door startled her. Max stood up immediately. He walked to the door and let out a low, warning growl. Maya walked to the door and looked through the small glass peephole. She saw a familiar face. She unlocked the heavy deadbolt and opened the door wide. Luke stood in the narrow hallway. He wore plain jeans and a dark blue shirt. He held a thick manila envelope in his left hand. He smiled warmly at her. "Good morning, Maya," Luke said. "Luke?" Maya smiled brightly. "Come in, please." Luke stepped into the small apartment. Max approached him immediately. The large dog sniffed Luke's shoes carefully and then pressed his heavy head firmly against Luke's leg. Luke reached down and scratched the dog gently behind the ears. "He remembers you," Maya said. "He is a smart dog," Luke replied. He handed the thick envelope to Maya. "This is for you, from the Federal Task Force." Maya took the envelope. She opened it carefully. Inside, she found several official documents. She read the top page. It was a formal letter from the city prosecutor. The letter stated that the city fully cleared Maya of any wrongdoing. It officially declared Max a completely safe and legal service animal. "They found the hidden security footage," Luke explained. "The entire city saw Troy attack you. The police know you just protected your dog. You have absolutely nothing to fear." Maya looked at the next document. It was a formal legal settlement offer. The corporate owners of the Elite Sports Complex desperately wanted to avoid a massive public lawsuit. They offered Maya a very large sum of money for her wrongful termination and the brutal physical assault she suffered on their property. Maya stared at the printed numbers. Her hands began to shake again. Birthry, Bastille, Holgam from pure relief. The money would pay her rent for years. It would pay for her college classes. It would change her entire life. "I do not know what to say," Maya stammered. Tears of genuine joy filled her eyes. "You did all of this. You saved us." "You saved Max," Luke corrected her quietly. "You took a heavy hit meant for someone weaker than you. That requires real courage. I just removed the bullies from the room." "Where are you going now?" Maya asked. She noticed a large, dark green military duffel bag slung over his shoulder. "I have to go back to work," Luke said. "My leave ends today. I am deploying overseas tonight." Maya felt a sudden wave of sadness. She wanted him to stay. She wanted to buy him dinner and thank him properly. But she understood. Men like Luke did not stay in one safe place. They moved constantly toward the danger. They protected innocent people in the dark. "Will you ever come back to Miami?" she asked. "Maybe," Luke smiled. "It is a nice city when it does not rain." Maya stepped forward. She wrapped her arms around Luke in a tight, warm hug. She pressed her face against his shoulder. Luke returned the embrace. He held her securely for a brief moment, offering a final, silent promise of absolute safety. He stepped back and looked down at Max. "Keep her safe, buddy." Max let out a single, sharp bark of agreement. Luke turned and walked out the door. Maya watched him walk down the hallway until he disappeared completely around the corner. 2 weeks later, the Miami Elite Sports Complex permanently closed its doors. The city seized the massive property. Troy sat alone in a cold federal prison cell, his massive ego completely shattered by the brutal reality of his actions. Maya did not look back. She used the settlement money to move into a better, brighter apartment near a large city park. She found a wonderful new job working at a local veterinary clinic. The clinic owner loved dogs, and Max came to work with her every single day. He slept peacefully on a soft blanket behind the front desk. The luxury gym was a false kingdom built entirely on ego and intimidation. It fell apart the exact moment it met a man who understood real, unyielding consequences. Bullies thrive in silence. They hide easily behind wealth and status. But true strength does not roar for an audience. True strength stands quietly in the shadows, entirely ready to protect the weak when the lights finally go out. The story of Maya, Max, and Luke is a powerful reminder that true strength does not come from wealth, a championship belt, or the ability to strike fear into others. True strength is found in the brave heart of a young woman willing to take a brutal hit to protect a helpless animal. It is found in a quiet stranger who refuses to look away when injustice occurs. Bullies like Troy and David build their empires on intimidation, believing the rules do not apply to them. But ego is incredibly fragile, and those who prey on the weak will eventually face a force they cannot control. Maya lost her job in the dark, but she kept her dignity, protected her dog, and ultimately gained a better life because one person chose to do the right thing. May God bless you and your loved ones with the courage to always defend the innocent. May He send loyal friends and silent protectors into your life whenever you face the darkness. If you believe that goodness and justice will always defeat arrogance, please type Amen in the comments section below. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that everyday heroes still exist, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories of loyalty, courage, and hope. Thank you for watching.